So welcome to Belfast Whale. My name's Jonathan Watson. If you like the show or like the episodes, please consider hitting the like button or subscribing. Today's guest is Valerie Georgeson. Valerie, welcome to Belfast Whale.
Thank you.
Valerie, so just before we start, as we talked before we start filming, your book it's out today. It's God, the Devil, and Me: The Chronicles of a Seeker of God, and it's released today by John Hunt Publishing. And that's what we're here to talk about. The book's about your time in the Sahaja Yoga Cult. Is that like saying that?
Yes, absolutely.
To kind of get started, you had a very successful career. You were in acting, writing. You were one of the first writers for EastEnders. And I think you also starred in like Emmerdale, and you worked for Coronation Street. How did that career start? How did you get into that very successful career?
Well, I began as an actress and started writing, I suppose, in my early 20s. And I liked writing very much. I found, to my surprise, I was quite good at it. And I like the life better as a writer. I don't like an actor's life, living out of suitcases, turning up at new digs and, all the rest of it. And as a writer, you get treated with more respect, quite honestly.
Okay, yeah.
It's an actor really doesn't always get a lot of respect, even within the industry, even within television and so on. And but a writer does, or used to. Less so these days, I think. But we were just talking today. I got a note from the publisher that book has been published. A few years ago, I used to get a bouquet.
Okay.
When I was having novels published. And it's a different world these days. It really is. I mean, no question, John Hunt have been absolutely brilliant. They really have. It's just a completely different way of doing things now with the internet and everything. Yeah. So I'm quite happy. I'll go in the garden and pick some nice daffs.
Excellent. You also, in the book, you mentioned that you had a difficult childhood. Can you explain a bit more about that? What was it like growing up?
Well, I have a lot to be grateful for. I really have. My dad was a very intelligent chap. He was an electrical engineer, and he was also very open to things. I saw a lot of Europe through him, just camping, all over the place. And it opened the world up for me. And also, as far as he was concerned, I could do whatever I wanted in the world, and I grew up, I could be whatever. And so he did open doors, but he had something in him which really was very, very unpleasant. And he used to target my brother a lot. And I used to lie awake at night wondering when to go down and make peace and make sure things didn't go all haywire. And that has affected my life. I developed insomnia, probably as a result of that. And for my dear mother, who was a very loving woman, I was the person who had to bring her dreams to light.
Okay.
So there was a lot of pressure and stress. And as I say, there's so much to be grateful for, but at the same time, I realized more and more how much things marked me. Yeah. But there you are. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
So I guess it made me strong.
And when I was reading the book, or preparing for the interview, I got the feeling that from kind of young age you were always kind of interested or connected to like spirituality, religion?
Absolutely, yes, yes. From very, very young, I guess that because of the experiences of my childhood, I was fairly depressed, but I knew that however dark things were, there was light, because the logic told me that if you recognize darkness, that must be because you also recognized light.
Yeah.
If you follow the logic of that. And I was seeking that light to come out of the dark place. And I sort of latched onto Buddhism. I taught myself to meditate. And when I was still at school, nobody really knew anything about this. I didn't talk about it at all. But it continued right through university. But I didn't start finding my way until I really became a writer, and then I started to find my identity. And it was the first page of my book, God, the Devil and Me. The very first page is where everything came together. I was sitting in Canterbury Cathedral reflecting on things and asking, what's the point of my life? I was in the play Alfie at the Marlow Theatre, Canterbury, so you can understand what's it all about, Alfie. And out of the big vaulting arches of the cathedral, there was a voice that was as clear as a bell, and it said, "One day you will write a book for God." And ever since that day, although I had no idea what the book was going to be or when it would happen, I just trusted that I would know when it did. And I did. Yeah. And I started writing this book basically to sell to the newspapers. It was going to be our story, and it would get us the funds to go to court to get my husband's daughter back from the sect because they had kidnapped her. And that's how I started. But when the sect just threw her back at us, I thought, well, what's the point? I don't need to continue with this. And then suddenly I thought, hold on a minute. This is the book. Yeah. And it's been, I suppose it's been the main thing in my life ever since then. So it's a long time in the writing this book. But then it was being written in my life by God, really. Ever since I've been living it and writing it, and thank God it's done. Yeah. It's been a hard journey.
Well, and we'll get into the whole Sahaja Yoga Cult in a wee minute. What was it like when you completed that book? When you pretty much your life's mission was completed? What was there, like a sense of elation, kind of like getting a heavy load off your back?
It was a relief. It was a real relief. Yes, it was. I felt like I had to finish this book. I didn't want to do this book at all. I really did not want to. I didn't want to have to relive some of these things in order to write it. And I just didn't want to put myself out there, to be honest with you. I'm a very private person. Yeah. And it's not something that I like. But I had to do it before I died, put it that way. I'm now 76. And really, you know, if you've got a job to do, you better get it done. So I got it done.
Oh, excellent. Well
well
done.
Really,
congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
How did you come across Sahaja Yoga? As you already mentioned, you were interested from a young age in the religion, and you were meditating before meditation has become a big thing as it is now. How did you come across them, the Sahaja Yoga?
Well, it was through a friend, somebody I'd worked with a lot. She knew this actress who had been in a sect and had got out, and her life had been very damaged, and now she'd found somebody else, another sect. And I talked to this lady, and thought, well, okay, let's look into this and see. There may be something in it, there may not. And I went along to a meeting, and as I always say, there is no mousetrap that works without a piece of cheese. I got a piece of cheese that day. It was that she was talking, it was a lady guru, an Indian lady, and she was talking away, and I was thinking, she talks a lot of sense, but, you know, it's not always like that. This creates a danger, or something like that. And she answered what I was thinking. She just gave me a glance and answered. She'd heard. She really had. She was very telepathic. Well, I'm pretty telepathic. And through the years since, I had telepathic conversations with that woman several times. And in fact, it was one of my telepathic communications that set off her attack on me, because she had discovered that I had a book to write. And I think she knew what it was before I did, that it would expose the sect and what she did, how she behaved. And she did her utmost to destroy me and to silence my voice so that this book would not appear. It's been a battle. It's been a battlefield with her all the way through. And she was a very powerful lady. She's dead now.
Yeah.
But she was able to influence things in the world. She had an occult power, and that was very hard to live with.
Well, just for anyone who's unfamiliar, there's obviously everyone's heard different cults. Some I think it was a Heaven's Gate was one of the most notable ones at the turn of the millennium.
Yeah.
What is Sahaja Yoga? What is it that? What's the core beliefs? I know the founder, or the woman that created it, was Mataji.
Mataji, yes.
Mataji. Yeah. So what was her teachings? What were they offering? I suppose is the best way to ask.
I'd be very wary of saying too much, because they're very keen on their copyright, if you see what I mean. So I'll be careful about what I say. They have a website which anybody can look into and see. But it's basically, it finds its credibility by being founded on ancient Hindu beliefs. Of the spiritual energy Kundalini, and raising that Kundalini to become united with God.
Okay.
And that is the basic teaching. And what happens when that happens is that you start to feel what they call vibrations. And it's a sensitivity to everything going on around you and to other people. And I was very, very, very sensitive indeed. I still am. And I feel many things. I felt the Gulf War starting. I felt when that stadium collapsed, I felt that. I feel many things. If somebody thinks a bad thought towards me, it comes as a pain. I know. I know. And if there's something good, it's like ice falling on my head. It's lovely. So, you know, but this is me. And my husband's also very sensitive, but I think that's probably as much as I can tell you. If people want to know more, they can go to the website.
If I can ask, the Kundalini, is that a bit like in China to talk, or in art of Tai Chi to talk about chi energy? Is Kundalini something kind of similar along those lines? Is it?
Hang on, I'm going to ask my husband, who's sitting here and who knows more about this than I do. Can you answer, dear?
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, he says.
Same, that's okay. No, because I was reading it. That's what my brain kind of connected. I thought one of that's similar to chi. Obviously when you went for that first kind of that first fateful meeting with Sahaja, did when you first joined, or when you first went, and subsequent meetings you went after it, did you ever get any kind of gut feeling that there's something not right, or was it more kind of when you went, it was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. It was like almost like it filled that void. They were offering, we will fill that void that you have within you. Is that what you felt, or was there more apprehension at the start?
I can't say I felt it filled a void at all. What I was seeking was, well, union with God, but I was also seeking other people like me. So I wanted to be part of something, to be with people who were seeking the same things as I was, so that I wasn't living this life in which my spiritual seeking was rather lonely. I tried the Quakers and found that very, very good, but there was something missing for me. I know what that was now, but then I didn't. And so that was attractive to me, the idea that there was this group of people who were all willing to give themselves to this because it would help them to reach their goal of union with God, basically. But I'm a writer, and there's always a bit of me that stands outside everything, taking notes. I think most writers are like that. It's just how it is. And I was like that throughout. And I always continued meditating in the way I had taught myself, which was a direct link to God. Whereas a lot of people in sects meditate through the presence of the guru. It's like instead of plugging into the mains, they're into what's the word? Adapter. It's just as well he's sitting there, isn't it? And I didn't do that. So I wasn't as linked to her as other people may have been. I still had my direct link. And there was several years, I really went through an awful lot of, well, hell, really. It's all in the book, God, the Devil and Me, there it is, it's all written out. But there was one day in which I sent her a telepathic message, and it was, please give me back my desire for God, because I knew everything was starting to slip. I was so exhausted with what was going on in this sect, and I was disenchanted on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
And that triggered a ferocious attack on me. She started trying to split me up with my husband and his daughter being taken away, and I was supposed to stop writing, and she told my husband, I can stop her writing. She was afraid of this book. She knew it was going to come because I was already questioning her. That message was a clear sign that I was going to be trouble. And she tested me out to see whether I could do things and what my connections were with the BBC and things like that. She suspected me of being a rebel, which of course I was. Of course.
Yeah. When you first joined the Sahaja Yoga Cult, that's what I'm calling it. If that's the incorrect,
no, that's fine.
Please correct me. When you first joined, you were starting to attend meetings. I know in your book, I think she started giving you more responsibility, if I remember that right. did she? Because I've had I've met people who've been in other cults, and I've had an experience of what's like of a cult kind of thing. And one of the things they kind of do is they kind of suss out new members. When she heard about your background, do you think initially she thought you would be of extreme value in promoting her ideology, her belief system?
Yeah, I think that was a possibility for her, I think. But she really worked hard to get me under her control, really, to subjugate me, to make me surrender to her. And really, when we went through a very hard time, I was married in the sect. I was married to the UK leader at Sahaja Yoga. And in Sahaja Yoga, if you're a woman and you get married, I'm afraid you're immediately in trouble because everything's your fault. It's the old thing, you know. A woman's place is in the wrong, basically. And it was really walking a tightrope the whole time. You were being judged every second, you know, and especially if you were a leader's wife, that really puts you in the target area for trouble. So she was testing me the whole time, and eventually I just felt this. She was doing things that were cruel to other people. I saw things that I could not accept. I mean, the breaking up of couples, taking the mother away and telling the children to forget her because she's no good. Stuff like that, and kids screaming. I mean, there's no way I could accept that. It's just plain wrong. So it really was getting me more and more in a situation where I was going to revolt.
Yeah.
And the rebellion was tough, but my husband finally came out as well and stuck with me, and we got his daughter back in the end.
No, definitely want to get into more into that. What just trying to obviously build up a picture, if we can. What was life? What would be a general day-to-day existence within the Sahaja Yoga Cult? Did you still have like a main job that you went to, and then at night time went to services or practices, or what was the? 'Cause I know in your book, your friend gave you a photograph of Mahaji.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think you had to meditate in front of the photograph or look into it.
Yeah, it was supposed to, yes.
Yeah. So could you give us a kind of a snapshot of life in the Sahaja Yoga Cult, if possible, or what it was like?
Well, for me, it was very stressful. Being a writer, I worked from home, and I was the breadwinner. I was the one doing the work that brought in the money. And there was a little girl to look after and a full-time job. And the phone kept ringing for my husband because he was the leader in this. And we were continually expected to go off on weekends to the other ends of Europe. Usually, at least, it was restricted to Europe, and take part in celebrations with all the other Sahaja Yogis from around the world. And there were meetings in the evening. You were supposed to get up very early to meditate, but to be quite honest, there came a point where I was so exhausted I couldn't possibly do that. I was having great trouble just making the ends of my energy meet each other to get my work done and keep going. It was very stressful, and I don't know what more to say. A point came where I needed my husband to pull his weight in the family situation, and he was constantly on call to Mataji. He was never there, you know. He was always at her beck and call. In Sahaja Yoga, a man was Mataji's son,
Right.
not your husband at all. He was her son, and you had to support him in that. Otherwise, you were a bad wife. You know, this was the woman's place being in the wrong immediately. The children were her children, first and foremost, not yours. They were hers. So you had no say in any of that, and the family life was not normal.
Yeah.
Quite simply wasn't. There was this big pretense, oh, everything works out wonderfully in Sahaja Yoga, doesn't it? But it didn't. It didn't. And I was in trouble all the time because my husband's daughter, well, she was a stepdaughter, and step families have massive problems to start with. And instead of supporting us through that, they encouraged her wicked stepmother and I'm Snow White attitude to everything. And that was an extra load, which was just horrendous, actually. It really was.
It's it's very, very similar to you often, I suppose a lot of these cults, even like say communism. I remember watching that film The Killing Fields about a month or so ago, and there's an image in it where there's a classroom of kids, and the kids have drawn a typical drawing you probably see in any part of the UK or Ireland, of a wee stick family and the wee house, and the kids are going up and they're taught to draw an axe for the parents and sever the child's holding the parent's hand, and it's obviously a chalkboard, and the child rubs out the link between the child and the parent, and everyone applauds, and all the other kids are applauding, and it's teaching the kids, this is not your family. We, the state, the party, are your family. And you see that even likes of Hitler Youth. It wasn't your family. It was the Führer. It was the fatherland, and what the ultimate aim was. So you see, kind of when I was reading this and what you're saying there sees Sahaja is obviously actively trying to control every area, every facet of human existence, and replace break bonds, but replace those with a new bond to her, almost like an octopus with tentacles reaching out. Would that be an accurate description?
Absolutely, and every sect, every cult has the same structure, the same manipulative processes, no matter what they are. A terrorist cell is much the same. Any sect at all. And if you can see the signs of this going on, you know you're in trouble. You're in a fusional group, and better get out quick, really.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry. Finish. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, a chap called Masood Bani Sadra, I heard speak about the Mujahideen, which he was in, and he was saying this himself, and every sect is one step away from being a terrorist cell. You do anything for the guru, including go out and kill people. You know, he said it's all just one step away from it, always. I think it's probably right.
Yeah, it's the sense I've always got from them is they paint the world very much like it's us against them.
Yes, yes.
They build a bubble around you, and pretty much say we're the only pure link you have to God, or whatever it is that's the ultimate power within that, or the ultimate the like in North Korea, the dear leader, everything beyond this, or beyond this peripheral, is evil. It's going to take you astray. There's that kind of constant reinforcement. That's evil, we're good. That's evil, we're good. Kind of almost a batter that individual spark down into conformity.
But what I've always said, what I've seen, is that if you get into a cult, what happens is you pass through a mirror. You go to the other side, the wrong side of the mirror. And on that side, day is night, black is white, lies are truth, and the reverse. And this is supposed to be heaven. This is supposed to be the right way to do things. This is everything that's good. On the other side is evil, it's bad, it's whatever the terminology is that's used. And it makes it very difficult to get out. In God, the Devil and Me, I describe how somebody tried, they were in trouble in Sahaja Yoga. They were in hot water. And basically, they didn't have the courage to take the leap through the mirror back to the normal side. And this has happened to, I think, a lot of people. They got kind of stuck in the mirror, unable to go either way, and have ended up in psychiatric hospitals or even committing suicide because they're afraid to go in either direction. And what is right? What is wrong? They're completely lost. And for me, I just jumped straight through. I thought, if this is heaven, it's not for me. Thank you very much. I jumped through and thought, well, people on this side are much nicer. And I was fine, but others are not so lucky.
I think there's this inbuilt, again, apologies, I don't know the proper psychological term, but us being social animals and we form tribes and bonds with groups of people. Chimpanzees do the same thing. There's that inbuilt fear of being excluded from the tribe. And this goes back to our early beginnings, where before we have our civilization we have now, if you were excluded from the tribe, you were cut off from medical help, which would be quite primitive, but assistance from your tribe, support, and even access to food, and that would have ultimately meant death. And I think like these cults successfully tap into that. It's like if you don't conform or don't set or meet these set principles that we're teaching you, you'll be cast out. There's that kind of ultimate fear. What kind of punishments? What if you got on the wrong side of Mahadji? I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If you got on the wrong side of
Mataji,
if you got on the wrong side of Mataji, what kind of punishments would she mete out?
Well, she tried to divide you from your husband or wife, depending which you were, and take your children from you, quite likely. And you would have all of the ills of Sahaja Yoga blamed upon you. You'd be made a scapegoat. I was made a scapegoat after we left. No question about that. News came to us out of the sect that we were being blamed for Sahaja Yoga not taking off in the UK. And she opened an ashram very close to us in an attempt to flush us out, you know. We were obviously doing a good job. You know, it would depend on who you were, but the worst thing was the undermining of the confidence of the person, to undermine the sense of being somebody at all, that you were rubbish. you were filth. I was no better than a prostitute, you know, all sorts of stuff like this. The sewage that was poured over my head was unbelievable. But it was quite interesting when one day I saw that somebody had been putting up leaflets, little posters in local shops, and I went round to get them all out because, you know, I didn't, thank you very much, I didn't really want people to be drawn into it. And I found one that was right in the middle of a whole lot of prostitutes, little notices saying, ring me on and have a massage on. I thought, yes, who is? But there you are. But we, my husband and I, we had so much help. I mean, the seeking for God brought help from God. And, you know, we had an experience in Venice of Mary, which was revelatory. It was unconditional love. And that's something we never got in Sahaja Yoga. You didn't really get love at all. And that took us both on a completely new course where we were strengthened and we found a definite path, spiritual path, which is still with us. So we're lucky.
How, when you were stuck within the Sahaja Yoga Cult, what, obviously you were working at a very successful writing career. You were writing EastEnders, I think, to start it in the early 80s. So
I wrote episode 3. I was in the first team. Yes. That's right.
How did that start to affect your work? Did your colleagues know? I know you work from home, but did your colleagues within the BBC, ITV, did they know that?
Not really.
Not really.
No, not really. I suppose it was a bit like Two Lives, but I was tired, very tired, because I was being sort of pulled apart at the same time as keeping going. And I did a lot of work for children's television, which was a joy. I really loved that, and that was not stressful. That was just, it was lovely. BBC children's television. But Mataji started to do everything she possibly could to destroy my career. And one by one, all the doors started shutting against me. And I knew it was her. I knew it was. It couldn't have gone on like that if it hadn't been interference from somewhere. And that was terrible. It still hurts me now, some of the things that happened. And my career went right down the Swanee. And I had to ask God, well, why aren't you saving me here? But it wasn't part of God's plan to save me. He wanted me to write this book. Never mind all that stuff. You know, you've got to write this book. So I gave myself to that.
Please correct me if I've made a mistake here. From what I was reading, Mataji herself, she, just for outsiders kind of benefit, she positioned herself as the gatekeeper to God. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes.
You could only through her, who's her approval, that you could then access the great beyond, God Almighty.
Well, she was God, you see.
Okay. she replaced,
Yes, that's right. So,
and then when I was reading the book, you mentioned she would have arranged marriages. So
yes,
you put yourself down on a marriage list, and within the year you got married. Can you explain a bit more about that, please?
Well, it was, as you say, I don't know that it was the same for every person. This is all in God, the Devil and Me. It's the whole thing. But in fact, for me, she ran the courting thing, the courting side of it. She was running it. And she summoned my husband one day and said to him, would you like to marry Valerie? And he said, yes, please, as I remember he told me. And he was surprised that I knew so much about it already. But a very strange thing had happened. I'd gone with my friend to see a play. It was it the Cherry Orchard or something like that? I can't remember. It was at the National. And while I was there, Mataji put a picture in my mind of him and showed me him on a stage, being wonderful and shining brightly. And I knew she was telling me that this was who she wanted me to marry. And I was stunned. I didn't want to marry a leader, for heaven's sake. That was trouble. And I didn't see much of that play, I can tell you. And not long afterwards, a lady who was in Sahaja Yoga phoned me up and said, would you like to come and see this play at the National Theatre? I said, no, I've already seen it. And then there's something happened, and I realized she was at Mataji's house. And there was a lot of laughter. And she came back to the phone and she said, no, you haven't. And she was right, because I hadn't seen it. I was sitting there with it going on in front of me, but I had not seen that play. And I realized this was confirmation of what I had realized. This was the kind of way in which she got into your mind and manipulated you.
Yeah.
She ran that courtship. Yeah. Not my dear husband at all. It was her. And it lasted for months, this kind of thing going on. It was very strange.
It's terrifying in a way. I think how much like one individual can. I've talked to guests about this before. It's terrifying how something that's supposed to be on the outside, representing good, want to go old school purity, and salvation. Something that's kind of offering you something whole, can be manipulated and twisted to the detriment of the followers, but to the betterment of the figurehead or the group of some cults have a group of people running the show. It's terrifying, the control they have. What was it that was it one particular event, or what was it that made you start to realize this isn't right? There's something seriously wrong here.
I remember one day in particular. I think it's in God, the Devil and Me. I think it is. I was sitting at home in my little cottage in Wimbledon, and my husband had gone off, had been summoned to go to a puja, which is a celebration, a worship of the guru, of the goddess, etc. And he'd gone up to Cambridge to a house that Sahaja Yoga now owned up there. And I had refused to go because I needed to get on with my work. And I desperately just needed a peaceful day to sit at the table and get writing. And he came back a bit upset, to be honest. And he had a message for me from Mataji. Tell Valerie it's not so easy to get out of Sahaja Yoga.
Right, okay, yeah.
And she was right, because the tentacles go in very deep, very. I mean, for us, it's been a serious battle to deal with it, because again, in God, the Devil and Me, there are these. The title says it all. There's God there on one side, but the devil's on the other, and the attacks, demonic attacks that we've had to deal with, you would not believe, but they're all there in the book. But it's been a very hard road.
What was the escape essentially from Sahaja Yoga Cult? How did that come to be? Did you and your husband make a plan, or was it just pretty much right? We need to get out of here. That we need to cut all ties. How did that? Or was it like fits and starts? Maybe you kind of escaped, and then maybe the psychological abuse and conditioning made you kind of doubt what you were doing. Can you explain a bit more about the escape?
I never doubted it. Never doubted it, and actually, I don't think he ever did. Did you? They were trying to split us. I was chunked out basically, but I just said, "Oh, great, thank you." Just what I want. You are banned, Valerie, from going to any of our meetings. Oh, God. That was my feeling about it. They were producing letters that they were supposed to have been written by influential Indian people and others, and they were all written on one of Sahaja Yogini's typewriter, that sort of thing. I mean, the slander, basically fraud. It was unbelievable. And at that point, my husband was trying to obey her commands, and he'd gone to live somewhere else. And then he needed to do some things, and I helped him with it. Nobody in Sahaja Yoga helped him at all. And he decided that he wanted out as well. And then it was a case of getting his daughter back, and that took some time. She was away for a year, and then we managed to get her back to go to a wedding. And after she was very traumatized, I must say. She was really in a bad way, I would say. And she was in such a bad way that it was suggested that she go and stay with her uncle for a day or two to calm down. And then we'd pick her up. They'd get her on a bus, and we'd pick her up at the King's Cross bus station. And we went to pick her up, and she wasn't there. She'd been spirited away on the route. And I wanted to phone the police, and my husband didn't, because he thought that would upset her more. And because we knew where she was. We knew perfectly well. And as I say, it was at that point I started really writing God, the Devil and Me, because it was going to fund a court case to get her back. But the very threat of the first solicitor's letter brought her back suddenly, abruptly, screaming as she came in. And it was a case of giving her space for quite a long time so that she could see for herself how things were and the truth of things. But I want to cry, actually. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
It really was horrendous. I mean, she had been brainwashed into thinking I was a witch who wanted to murder her. And how does a relationship ever recover from that? Ours never did. Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. So, the wicked stepmother forever.
Can I ask how's things today? Like, are things a lot better? Do you feel that you've? I know you're saying you never recover from, but do you feel Do you feel better today? Do you feel a bit more peace, family-wise, your husband, your stepdaughter?
I feel strong. I feel strong. And finishing the book has been, you know, as we said earlier, it's been such a relief to know I've done the job. Though I must say I was scared of getting it out there. I was frightened, but I didn't have the right to be frightened. I had to
Sorry, were you frightened of retribution from the Sahaja Cult?
Yes. Because since she died, the Mataji, since she died, things have probably calmed down a lot.
Yeah.
And they may not be as they were in those days. But until they can look at the past and confront it and see the truth of what they're still attached to, then they'll never be free of it.
Yeah.
You know, I had to get the truth out there, my story, so that people could start to look at their own stories and see the truth and finally free themselves of this terrible attachment to the adapter.
Yeah.
And, you know, become normal again, become themselves, in fact, because they're not being themselves, not really. It's a false existence.
Yeah.
So people need the kind of help that this book will give them, really. The truth's important. It's the only reality there is. Lies and illusion are just that. They're not real.
I think today, one of the biggest assets, I think, to defeating cults, or to, in the 70s and 80s, if you were kind of sucked in even any cult, there's not much exterior noise coming in to kind of say, hang on a second, what he just said there is incorrect. Whereas now, I think that's one of the, I suppose, the miracles of the internet. I know the internet has a lot of faults, but I would say one of the benefits of the internet is messages like yours can now punch through. So if someone's in a cult and maybe they unwittingly Google their cult's name, they'll hopefully then see a counter narrative, and then hopefully make those connections in their head to go, oh, that okay, I did hear about that, but I thought that. And hopefully, I think that's did more damage to those cults than before, because
we can only hope.
Only hope, yeah.
Yeah.
If I can ask, what advice anyone who's watching this that is in a cult, maybe even Sahaja Yoga right now, what would be your advice to them, if they're stuck in a cult and they want to escape?
I'd say hold on to your friends, hold on to your family. They will be a strength for you, because you will need propping up. You really will. Take a lot of deep breaths. Don't overthink. Let the truth sink in slowly. And then you really just have to start to question more. Because if you're in something like Sahaja Yoga and you are sensitive, as I was, you're getting a lot of input on the psychic level, if you like. You're getting a lot coming in. Some of it is helpful, but what I call the enemy, the devil, is very good at impersonating. I mean, that has happened to me before. My guardian angel, I had a relationship with my guardian angel. He stepped back. I'm really sorry to lose him, actually. He's still there, but I don't have the same relationship that I had, which was really friendly, and it helped a lot. And he told me something when we visited my mother-in-law up in Scotland, and he said it was the last time, and she did die not long afterwards. And this day I was in London, I was going to BAFTA to see a film, and my husband dropped me off at the tube station, and I heard it again, and it sounded like My Guardian Angel, but it wasn't. And during the film at BAFTA, my heart started going funny. And it was an attack, actually. It was the prelude to an attack. So you have to be careful. You have to be detached. You have to question, you know, just always in everything.
Yeah.
Keep that detachment. And as I say, hang on to those who can be normal with you.
Yeah.
Embrace normality.
Yeah.
Embrace ordinariness. It's important. It's part of our humanity, you know. It's great.
When you leave a religious cult of any kind, often a lot of people carry a lot of anger, not naturally so and understandably so. They carry a lot of anger to obviously the religion or the cult they've escaped from, but in general to other religions, because they've been scarred psychologically and maybe sometimes even physically. That leaves lifelong scars. For you, when reading the book, you and your husband used then convert to Catholicism. Did you have that anger, resentment towards religion when you escaped, or what prompted that kind of shift to Catholicism?
That was all God's doing. It really was. There's no question about it. It was like a route planned out, and it was amazing. As for being angry with them, they were victims. Yeah. The people who hurt us were victims too. It took me a long time, but a moment came when I finally managed to forgive. And that's important, because if you don't forgive, you're still linked to them, you know?
Yeah.
It breaks the link because you let go as you forgive. And it's important to forgive. And I prayed for them day in, day out for many years. And as I say, they're victims. They're victims too. There's only one person to blame for this. And it's not them.
Have you met anyone from your time in the Sahaja Yoga Cult who've also got out? Have you bumped into any old associates who are now free from that cult?
Well, my husband has. He had an employee in his own business who was also in Sahaja Yoga, and he's met him, and they've talked quite normally. I haven't had any contact whatsoever. Especially at the beginning, we realized that we had to cut off completely, and we still are very wary, because you can't trust anybody who's living a lie. You can't, and you don't know what weird things they're thinking, and you know, I think we're reaching the point where we could meet up with them.
Yeah.
They've become a bit more normal since her death. A bit less dangerous. I think it would be good. There's some people that I love dearly who were good friends. They were good people, and they're lost to us, and that's really, really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If going back to the thing, and you touched on quite a lot of stuff there. I've spoke to a lot of guests about this, and one of the questions I always ask them, especially about religion again, comes from that kind of damage that some individuals within a religion can do. And Jeff Thompson, who I interviewed, who let this interview went out quite recently, he kind of reiterated that in a way, if you're throwing a religion out, or whether it's Hinduism, Christianity, whatever, based on the hurt that an individual within that organisation has visited upon you, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe very much kind of interested, like yourself, maybe from a young age, interested in spirituality and has that want to go on a spiritual journey? If they've been badly, maybe psychologically traumatized by an experience within a church or a cult or some religion, what advice would you give them if they were considering to continue that journey, but maybe were more weary because of past experiences?
Oh, that would depend on the person, I think, very much. Again, this thing of don't forget to be detached. You know, you can learn more about it. Really learn. We did a degree course in theology, and my husband eventually became a deacon. So we're pretty well solidly in the church now. But there was a long learning curve, and I did a long retreat, an Ignatian retreat, which was a retreat in life. It lasted a year, just, you know, doing particular meditations. And I found that very helpful to orientate me. Something like that might be helpful, but where you're not dependent on another person's interpretation, where you need to be sure that what you're doing is independent. If you're just sort of like taking lessons, then that's not doing a lot. If you're looking into something and taking your mental notes as well as experiencing things, and then you go into a calm, quiet meditation and think about it and let the pieces fall into place. You know, this calm, quiet thing is very important. I don't know if I can say much more without sort of taking the personality of the person into account, really.
Okay.
But I don't know. Do you think that's helpful, dear?
Yes, I think so.
Speak up.
Suffering is a way to understand God.
Yeah, he's just saying suffering is a way to understand God, and that is very, very true. That is actually the value of suffering. And I mean, what we went through, and we have suffered a lot, but it has been formative.
Yeah.
There is value in it, and you learn from it, and you grow. And you learn to, empathy is vitally important. You learn to have if it's a word, empathetic relationship with not just other people, but with, quite honestly, the whole planet.
Yeah.
With, you know, with what's going on in climate change and so on, it's all, we're all one. We are all made of the same stardust. And it's the suffering that we're all going through, the planet is going through. We're all going through a huge amount. But please God, it will have some value.
Yeah.
I hope so. But what we go through personally, certainly, well, like we said earlier on, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually true if you take the right attitude to it and don't just give in and completely crumble.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely. I think it's easy when bad things happen, and understandably, when bad things happen, it's kind of go, why me? Why is this happening to me? And you want to escape. We all want to move away. It's a normal response to move away from suffering. But I think if you can get to a point, like yourself, we were able to look back, and you can realize, actually, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am now. That was kind of
yes,
I
it
needed
was
I needed to go
formative.
through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to look at it in a way, if you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Accept what happened.
Yeah.
Accept.
And
You can't change it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't go back.
Mm.
In the book, and I know you just mentioned that when you left the Sahaja Yoga Cult, you were under constant attack from Mataji. You mentioned you underwent an exorcism. Can you talk more about that? About what happened? And
I was having exorcism for, I don't know quite how long, about 3 years perhaps.
okay,
It's an absolutely lovely priest whom we came across, and he saw me frequently. He helped a lot of people. It was his job.
Yeah.
And it was grueling. I can't say otherwise. It was quite hard. And in the end, I learned a lot about how to fight off demonic attacks. And I was getting them endlessly. I was really being targeted. Spirits mainly. It was pretty horrendous. I don't get very much of it now, but I have had one or two in the last few months. But I know how to fight them off.
Yeah.
And one thing you must never be is afraid. Never.
Yeah.
They're nothing. They're not real. You know, what we were talking about is the truth is reality. They're lies and illusion, you know.
Yeah.
Bog off, quite frankly. So there was a lot of good there in learning how to deal with things. And other than that, I came to the conclusion in the end that whatever I'd learned, well, if you learn it from a demonic source or a spirit, you can't rely on it being true. It could all be a whole lot of lies.
Yeah.
So you've got to question. Again, it's this thing of questioning everything and say, well, I won't get carried away that this is the reason why I'm having problems. No, I won't. It may be just a distraction. And you have to learn to, I think you have to learn to use an exorcism rather than let it use you.
Yeah.
Because I think it can do.
I suppose if you look at like some individuals like Mataji, they're on the lie that they kind of perpetuate is they care about everybody, and they want everybody to have a great if their well-being being improved, their quality of life being elevated. But the ultimate intention there is it's their own maybe psychotic. That's the one word used. Their own psychotic gratification of manipulation, as you explained, getting in between families, mother, daughter, father, daughter, husband, wife, and ultimately control. Those almost like we call it energy vampires, where they suck. It's like a leech, almost leeching on their followers. They're taking everything
taking the
into
psychic
them.
energy.
And not giving anything in return. Whereas I suppose a true decent person or noble person, they're giving, they're not on the, they're like the grey man or grey woman. They're in the background, they're invisible, but what they're doing is helping people, elevating people, giving people kind of a sense of good self-belief that they can do things.
Yes.
It's like the opposite. Like you said about your father, he gave you that sense that you could be anything, go anywhere.
Yeah.
He showed you the kind of the world. So it's kind of like a contrast there of individuals. I know it kind of went off a wee bit on a tangent. Just it was a thought that came to my head. The Exorcism. I know. As soon as you mention that word, people automatically jump to the movie. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
What are you able? What goes into an exorcism? Is it something that you went to the priest and said, "Look, I feel I need this," or was it something through a conversation with him that he says, "Valerie, I think you would need an exorcist, or you would benefit from an intervention like that"? Are you able to go into more detail than that?
Well, he would approach things delicately, I suppose. And I mean, the devil is around. I always say God is. That's the name he gave to Moses. I am. He is a being. We exist, but we are not. We're becoming. The devil exists, but he's not becoming, and he never will. if you follow me, this is my potted theory of what the devil is. The devil ultimately is not real, but he does exist, and there all the time. There are spirits. There are definitely spirits around that seem to be working for the dark side, and you tap into them at your peril.
Yeah,
you've got to be very, very careful. I mean, I've never believed in that. I have heard from people who have died, but I have never sought to hear from them at all. It's been their decision, as you might say. But as for the devil and demonic entities, if there's one around, then the exorcist presence alone will start making it apparent. And if he starts saying the exorcism prayers, then there's likely to be a reaction in the person who's being troubled. And it's following your nose from there, or him following his nose from there, really. It's not popular with the devil, I can tell you that. On the way to seeing The Exorcist, every time my dear husband, who was driving, had to keep stopping the car so I could be extremely sick.
okay,
It happened most times. It's just trying to stop us going, or the idea would be put into my head, the house might take fire or something like that. I can't go out. Stupid things, but those panic stations on the demon side.
yeah.
And that in itself is a sign that there's a problem and we need to deal with this. But I mean, the last 2 or 3 nights, we both heard strange things in the house. I mean, there are a particular kind of bang for which there is no physical evidence. And we've had it before. The whole bed shook before now with a bang. There was like something like a piece of concrete going through the roof, passing just by the side of the bed, and through the floor and down to the ground. That's what it felt like, and the whole bed shook.
Okay.
And you think, what the hell was that? And there's no sign of anything whatsoever. Yeah. But there's lots of stupid things like that. And I mean, they are stupid things, let's face it. But there was a real nasty one, which I didn't like at all, which began with a voice in my ear. And that one I did not like. I held up a St. Benedict cross, and anybody knows he was an exorcist himself, and I held up this particular cross dedicated to St. Benedict and told this entity to, as I used the words before, bog off. And it went like that. And I asked the Lord to send the angels to camp around us that night, because it was a nasty one. And you could feel it. It was sort of a sense of incredible lightness and a sense of almost inaudible chatting. You know, they were sort of, oh, this is fun. It was a bit like that. And it was wonderful. It was almost worth having the nasty visitation in order to have the pleasant one. So you can learn, if you really are troubled by these things, you can learn ways to deal with it. And you do. You don't let it rule you. It's just an annoyance.
Now that you've obviously completed the book, that was quite a few decades in the making.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
What's next for you? It's almost like the end of one story. What have you got coming up? Or what would you like to focus on in the future, or just enjoy life in general?
I honestly don't know. I'm waiting to see. We'll see. You know, maybe if people need help, maybe we can be useful. I don't know. I have this little dream. I would like to write another novel, but I don't know. After writing God, the Devil and Me, I just feel there's not a lot of point in writing anything else, is there?
Yeah.
It's all in there. So I don't know is the answer.
We're obviously just coming to the end. And at the very start of the book, you wrote, the great lesson of this book is that empathy is essential for spiritual evolution. And you know you touched on empathy. Can you give us a wee bit more on that there? The meaning of that? Empathy is essential for spiritual evolution.
It's recognition of the other. There's a French philosopher called Paul Ricoeur who wrote a book, Yourself as the Other. If you start to recognize that the other person is you, love the other as yourself, actually meaning the other person is yourself. You see yourself in the other, and the other sees him or herself in you. It's that all oneness thing. And if you can relate to the rest of creation in this way, including animals, plants, everything, but obviously, especially other human beings, then you're already moving on. You're coming out of your temporary time and space personality to become the real you, the stronger spiritual being, which is there for everybody. And then everything starts to become easier. Loving your neighbor as yourself, forgiving. People have trouble forgiving, but if you can see that the other person is you, could be, then it gets easier. Everything gets easier. You don't have to think about the rules. You just are. I think that makes it as clear as I can make it.
Yeah.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
No, it's great. It stuck out to me when I was reading it. That's why I thought
I'll think more about that one.
No, thank you. Valerie, thanks for coming on today. if anyone wants to get in touch with you, or wants to purchase the book, how can they do that? Do you have a website, or will you have a website coming up?
I don't have a website, but you can get onto the JHP website. And
Jonathan Publishing.
Yes, you can do that. So, sorry, yes. And we have a blog, gd-m@blogspot.com. We have that, and we put in articles from time to time. Don't know what else. Ordering the book, Amazon, Habit and Waterstones and the usual bookshops. There will be one in a bookshop near you.
Yep. And I said, just for anyone watching, God, the Devil and Me, The Chronicles of a Seeker of God. It's released today. I'll also include links to the book in the show notes below, so people can purchase the book and all. Valerie, thank you so much for coming on today, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate.
I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you. It's been a lovely chat. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate talking about a very difficult period in your life. I know it's not easy, and especially me probing questions. I know that can't be easy, but I appreciate that, and thank you. And may I also say best wishes for the book release, and best wishes to you and your family, and hope you have a good year going forward.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you.